I'm Mark Seifter.
And I'm Linda Zies Palmer.
And this is Arcane Mark. Welcome to Arcane Mark.
Hi, welcome to Arcane Mark. Today we're going to be talking about plot twists. What are plot twists, how to use them effectively, what kinds of things happen when they're not used so effectively, and pitfalls to avoid, and as well as some of the things that are unique to tabletop role-playing games when it comes to plot twists that you're not going to see in other media.
So, Linda, what are plot twists? Are they like garlic knots?
Well, I mean, both of them are twists, and both of them can be a little spicy, but not really.
Okay, what are they?
So,
I may never have used one before.
if you claim that, then maybe you have amnesia, which is one of the types of things that they could use as a plot twist, where it's like
classic plot twist.
Yeah, you secretly remember something. So oftentimes when you see plot twists, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that there can be constructed. Right? There's something about like some character is secretly actually also some other character or has some other connection into the story that you didn't expect.
I have amnesia now.
Oh no. It's something that you're not necessarily expecting to happen. That's a change that changes the direction of the plot or changes the way that you think or feel about a different element of the story. And, some plot twists are more telegraphed than others. To get into some of the sort of like good versus bad plot twists.
Is it good versus evil?
Evil plot twists.
Or is there no alignment in plot twists?
Usually it's good for them to be at least some signs of the plot twist coming, so that if people can go back and they can say, oh yeah, I never noticed that that person's reflection was a little funny in the background of the scenes, but now that I go back and see it, then that all makes sense. As opposed to something that just kind of like comes out of nowhere and didn't have anything that helped to set it up. What would you say the plot twist is, though, before I get too much into that?
Yes, well, if you think of the plot as like a railroad, which, in some cases it shouldn't be, but if you think of it as like a path, maybe a branching path, but it's, you're going along this path, you're walking along, it's kind of relatively straight, it may turn a little bit, sway around, and then it just suddenly veers off. And you're like, whoa, what happened? That's probably a plot twist.
Yeah, you can have like a pretty significant change in the stakes or the tension of the story at that time, or a change in who is friend or who is foe, or what the priorities are of the characters in the story.
Kitsune Warlock says the ultimate plot twist is when you set up an obvious plot twist and it never comes. Like, you don't know how shocked Linda was. She was playing a game where like there's like a reigning queen and there's this regent guy, dour looking regent guy standing around, and like he turned out to be completely loyal to the crown, and when the queen was incapacitated, he just like took over, was like, thanks to what she would have wanted, we need to do this, and rallied everybody, and was not a traitorous traitor.
So that was a really good setup, because I don't want to spoil the game by saying like what game it was, but the idea was that the vizier just like or the chancellor just like regent just kind of looked suspicious, and so like when another character comes in and betrays you, the fact that it was like, oh my gosh, that character, I didn't even see anything about that character. I thought the regent was going to betray us. Like, I was watching the regent.
He was just a stand-up guy the whole time.
But I mean, that does go to show something about like making plot twist. Like, people don't have to not realize that a plot twist could be coming. Sometimes you have them just like barking up the wrong tree and saying, oh yeah, this is definitely going to be the one who betrays us, or this is how things are going to happen, and you can play with people's expectations from the genre to surprise them.
Dustin points out that in PFS, if the NPC has feet, they're evil.
Yes.
Because otherwise they would only warrant like a bust.
Well, we do sometimes try to subvert that by ordering some full character art. And that was another thing too, Dustin, how like we realized that some of the earlier society scenarios would like stick the villain on the front cover, and then we're like, people are going to start realizing that if we see that art again that we saw on the front cover, it's a villain. So we kind of introduced a soft rule of like, try to put people on the front cover who are like allies, or like people that you encounter in the middle, so that you're not, you might occasionally have the villain at the end.
There are phases of bad covers. One of them was the ones that spoiled the villain.
Yes.
So then it moved from that to the shock monster with the coolest art, but then that would just remove all the shock that monster just suddenly appeared.
Yeah.
Of course it did. This was the one with like the giant half dragon crocodile on the front. I'm not surprised I was attacked by a giant half dragon crocodile. But then doing like the ally art or something like that was perfect because it tells you something, but not something that really gives anything away.
And sometimes it will give things away. Like it's like, oh yeah, this scenario has this particular feature or whatever. But at the very least, it's trying not to give away too much while still being something that people would like to see and would be exciting.
That's right. So basically, plot twists are when you subvert expectations. And just like with a lot of things in life, expectations are there for a reason. I love plot twists, but you can definitely overdo them, and you can definitely have them fall flat. And that's why we wanted to do an advice episode on plot twists, because if you've ever GM'd and tried to do plot twists, chances are you've had several failed plot twists where, like, and by failed, I mean, like, maybe you probably did them, but like just the players didn't respond the way you would have liked.
Yeah.
One of the most common ones is where it's like you are running the campaign, doing the plot, and like you get to this moment of reveal, and then suddenly from behind the curtain comes out, and it's like, aha! And Jonas reveals, I've been the mastermind all along, and everyone's like, who's Jonas? And you're like, come on, Jonas! Remember, he was the one who hired you to do adventures number 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 9 of these 10 adventures.
Yeah.
That's like 7 of your 10 adventures. And you went to his daughter's wedding that one time, and like you saved his sister from the bugbears. And people are like, no, I don't think I remember
they'll be
Jonas.
like, oh yeah, I remember the
sure?
wedding. It had like a cool fountain.
Yeah, I remember the swan, the ice sculpture of a swan at the wedding, but was that really someone's daughter? I don't think there's a Jonas. And you're like, yeah, but he's the villain. So one of the most common ones is that the players just do not remember anything at all, not only of your foreshadowing, but even what you assume to be like the most basic underlying principle of what the plot twist was.
And you'll notice, like in TV shows and things like that before they do some of these reveals, they may be more likely to have a few episodes that happen to have like recap segments at the beginning that went back and showed you some of the things that happened throughout the season, so that they can get a lot of characters' faces on the screen, but in particular the one to remind you, oh yeah, that character, so when you see them again, you remember them.
If you want to know who's going to die or become a traitor, pay attention to those recap segments, even if that you already remember the things for the recap and you don't, and so you usually just gloss them over or skip. Just watch them for a moment and just like think critically, do critical analysis of them and think through, like, why is this person giving that one random snippet of speech to the main character in this recap? Like, was that actually important enough to be previously on? And you can usually, if you actually do that, like, guess a huge percentage of things, or even it's not really guessing at that point, because you're following the strings.
But you can do the same sort of thing in a tabletop game by, bringing that character back around or bringing something back up that causes people to talk about that character. So, like, have that character have proximally sent the PCs on a mission where they had a longer phase interacting with them, or have someone else talking about that character. Have that organization be particularly relevant.
Sometimes your group still won't remember. It's like, come on, remember Jonas was just there with you in every encounter. Remember, he's the bard who's been playing the songs. He gave you Inspire Courage. That was why you crit that one time. I was like, no, are you sure?
Yeah, but
I don't think Jonas was here.
Well, I think part of that, too, in this case of the Jonas, with this particular NPC Jonas, like, you're saying that the bard, maybe they just go like, oh, yeah, it's the bonus, and that the NPC themselves wasn't as fleshed out. So I find that people remember NPCs more when they have some kind of like a shtick or something that people associate with them.
Remember, he did a little mocking puppet show after every battle. It's like, no, we don't remember.
Yeah, people probably are more like the more of those types of things that are in, though, like some kind of a connection to that character. And also another thing too, like if you have an NPC and you're thinking of setting them up for like something bigger, and your players are just like meh and they're not interested in them, then maybe you should pick someone else to take that role.
That's true. The example I like to give is that it would have sure been easy in Shackled City to get my PC hooked in if Bob the Guard, a throwaway guard character that my GM created to just roleplay with me right at the beginning of the adventure path, had been a mastermind, because like Bob sent me to like this really horrible path to go to the place that I wanted to go to, where I got ambushed by ex-guard members who did not make enough money as guards and formed a thieves guild. So like he could have easily been the head of the thieves guild, and my character super motivated and was trying to figure out which person was on duty then, whose name was Bob, and like asked the guard captain, "This is the day and the time. Tell me, you need to send me Bob the guard. He's probably in this thieves guild that you told us to root out after it ambushed us." And it just was a nowhere lead. The guard captain even somehow couldn't figure out who that person was, because the GM just didn't want to follow with it. But it could have been an example of a plot twist that was like sort of player led. When you think of plot twist, you usually think of the scheming GM who comes up with their plot twist behind their screen. The players can also lead into plot twists, and I'll tell you, they will definitely remember the person that is their like personal, white whale that they're chasing after.
And one thing to keep in mind that's a pitfall that you can definitely fall into when you're pulling things in after the fact, or is the situation where the pieces don't all add up. Mark was just before the show talking about a famous example from a TV show where this happened. From the
first writer's strike, there was a TV show called Dollhouse, where it was famous for the horrible ending where a very trusted character who had made literally no sense for them to be the BBEG just was revealed as BBEG because they ran out of time on the show and didn't have time, I guess, to build in another character to be the BBEG if they had more seasons. And it literally made no sense because all of the heroes would have died multiple times if this person actually was being the BBG. And the only explanation it was giving was, "Oh no, I just love you guys, so I just helped you out anyway, even though you were opposing me."
So making sure that that things are consistent with the past beats of the story. Like if there's a few bits and pieces that don't 100% gel, like most players, not Mark, but most players won't notice every like little fine detail, but as much as you can, making sure that making sure that those big beats match up. And if there are things that don't quite work out, look for ways to explain that or to shift things around a little bit. Maybe have some pieces of that odd mystery, that part that's a little trickier to fit, show up to the players so that they might have some more clues about what's going on and that it can make sense in hindsight. Because plot twists should generally make sense in hindsight. Maybe not immediately after they happen. Certainly they can leave a feeling of what on earth happened and why. But players are likely to want to try to explore the why and figure out, why were we tricked or deceived? Why did we think things were a certain way, and why did they turn out this different way? So making sure that they can find those answers is important.
So that plot twist is fail. I'll try to give some names. So that plot twist fail is the So the next plot twist fail is the sigh. Like, go home, M. Night Shyamalan. That's where you're the GM who you came up with one plot twist that was cool and everyone liked it, and then you just kept, everything was a plot twist. Nothing actually was what it seemed to be, and the players just got basically like a little bit of plot twist PTSD to the point that they never trusted any characters or plot lines because they were just convinced that the rug was going to be pulled out from under
Everyone who gives us a mission is secretly trying to backstab us. Everyone who, every normal merchant is actually secretly part of a criminal cabal. All of these sorts of things, and then you can't. Nothing is what it appears to be, because if nothing is what it appears to be, then there's not going to be that sense of surprise and wonder when something isn't what it appears to be. It's just like, okay, yeah, we can't trust anything that we see.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can eventually just make people fatigued on plot twists and just inured to them so that they have no impact in the same way that people can get inured to any other kind of tumult, including violence happening around them, and just be like, well, no, that's just a thing. We're being shot by rockets, I guess, in our town.
Other Room Studios talking about playing a weekly Twitch game that had a plot twist on every week, one plot twist every 3 hours of play. So, in that case, that's part of the construction of the story, I imagine, too, though, that and the players know going into it, we're playing a story that's always going to be shifting and changing in a certain way. And so that's something that they're coming in and they're buying into. So it'd be different than, if you're setting up a campaign and people are, just trying to get their footing. I imagine that kind of campaign is going to be a lot more, wacky and zany, and, the characters are going to expect and the players are going to expect the unexpected. Maybe you're playing in the Maelstrom or something, some super chaotic place where things are always shifting and changing.
That's right. So you've got the plot twist that's like, we don't know what this is. We got the plot twist that doesn't make any sense,
Mm-hmm.
which could also be we don't know what this is. We've got the plot twist that is just like, you're clever, but you've really done so many plot twists by
Mm-hmm.
now. Are there any other like major genres of plot twist fails?
I would say that I would say the plot twist that doesn't let the players discover it. So like let's say that you've put in a lot of hints that like, you know, I'm just gonna say the regent is the bad guy or whatever. But then like every time the players try to investigate, the characters try to go in and prove that the regent is the bad guy, they encounter arbitrary roadblocks and nobody believes them until like the last moment when the GM has decided that they're allowed to figure it out. And then it's just like, okay, seriously, the world is like twisting because it's trying to make us be surprised. Whereas like we figured it out. Letting the characters figure things out and then change things around based on that, and then have the NPCs react accordingly. You know, maybe it can still be interesting if then, you know, some NPCs don't believe the PCs that the regent is a traitor because they believe because they, you know, they have reason to trust the regent more. But then there are others who might believe the PCs, and then they can start taking actions toward that, and then they have to start dealing with this. Like, well, you know, if we go into court and start yelling to everyone the regent is a traitor, the regent is going to bring resources against us. But if we go and go and search around for underground rebellion and join them, then we can, you know, start figuring this thing out and gaining some advantages by virtue of having figured things out sooner than expected. Especially when you then call attention to the players about like, oh, you know, they find signs of something the regent was about to do that they stopped because they were clever and figured it out in advance. Then it can really feel like a reward to the players for figuring stuff out.
So there's the close sibling of the railroaded plot twist that you can't avoid, which is one that I've seen like authors say that they're literally doing, which I'm going to call like the vindictively twisty plot twist. This is someone who has such a fragile ego about their plot twists that if anyone guesses something that was going to be a plot twist, that they just rewrite everything so that it's something else, so that it cannot be guessed by anything.
Don't do that.
I've literally seen like authors of things who even said, "Oh yeah, someone guessed the thing I was doing, so I won't. I will refuse to do something that anyone guessed." Which doesn't make very much sense to me, and like kind of negates all of their foreshadowing. It's great if someone guessed it and found your subtle foreshadowing. That means that you did something cool, in my opinion. But like the vindictively twisty plot twist, which is some people chat were saying that the opposite of that, which we talked about before, where the player is so sure about something, you just actually twist it into their thing so that they can be right, which is good.
Yes.
But I'll always twist away, so whatever you think it is definitely wrong.
Because we can't let you figure it out.
It comes from the same place as the, no, you can't figure out it's the regent. It would be the vindictively, actually the regent was innocent. And then in the world they were, even though there were all the signs that they weren't. And it's actually like the player's sister is now the villain for no adequate reason other than that the players guessed it was the regent.
Now, while it is more complicated, you could potentially do something if you haven't decided yet, where you set things up where there's enough clues that the person behind it could be person A or person B, and then you watch and see, like, I think folks were saying a little bit earlier in the chat too, which one the players are grappling onto more, which one seems more interesting, and then decide. Because until the players have seen information, it's not.
Yeah, it's always okay
canon,
to change information when people don't know, but you might want to err on the side of making it cool for them by letting them be correct. If you're going to actually change it in advance, and that's what, like, for instance, GD Junkie in chat was saying, and wanted to make it clear to us because they had just said you could change it at a time when we were talking about that. It's like, that's a good thing to do, but there's some people who just it was like they wanted to be clever and do a twist that no one would see, and so they just literally change.
And one way to do some of that a little bit easier than like rewriting the whole background of everything could be like, you know, the one thing that you alluded to before too, like, you know, maybe this person that the PCs are like, maybe that could be the mastermind. Maybe they're not the mastermind, but you can find a way to make them allied with the mastermind, or a patsy of the mastermind, or in some other way related to the plot, so that the PC's investigation of that person gives them some useful information.
Right. Like, I didn't think Bob was really a major mastermind, but Bob could have been a way to lead us into the rest of the plot.
Or maybe, you know, maybe that person is being set up by the mastermind to be framed, and then by uncovering what's going on there, then you can figure out some more stuff about what's
I mean,
going
yeah,
on.
not in the specific case of Bob, but
Not in the specific
most
case
other
of Bob,
cases,
but like
yeah.
in some other cases, like, oh, we're suspicious of this person. Well, this person was being set up to take the fall, but you can find incongruities with the evidence that proved that something was being faked. And it's like, oh, well, you know, this is being faked with these strange alchemical ingredients. Not many people have access to these strange alchemical ingredients. Okay, who could have done this? Maybe the town alchemist was involved somehow. Ah, yes, there was someone who made a suspiciously large
It could
purchase.
be Al, the chemist.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So these are some of the major pitfalls in plot twists, and we gave a lot of pitfalls at the beginning because we wanted to make sure that you steered away from them, and it's even easier to give advice in terms of avoiding pitfalls. But what makes a really cool plot twist? So we kind of give away some of it, which is like having the player's attentiveness be proved correct is very validating. In fact, we talked about this in the spoilers episode, but there's a research that shows that despite the fact that there are some people who are just so persnickety that they will just literally will be very angry if they find out anything about something. But most people, even people who think that they don't like spoilers, actually, if you put them into like an A/B study with where people were split at random, had more of a positive response to the media afterwards, having been spoiled to it, certain aspects of it beforehand, because it allowed them to appreciate things. No one knows exactly why. The explanations are what the researchers were guessing, which is maybe they could appreciate some of those hidden elements more, which you could do on a rewatch for a TV show, but a lot of people don't rewatch.
Yeah,
and
I like for video games playing with if they've got multiple endings or whatever, playing it fresh for the first time and then playing it again the next time with that information, so I can still experience being surprised, but then explore things in a new light. Be like, oh yeah, that was totally a thing that I missed.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're gonna do multiple things, then that's a different story. But the study only had people do things once, and the ones who had been spoiled just rated higher their appreciation of it. And not only their appreciation of the media that they were shown, but also like their general enjoyment and like how their positive feelings. So weirdly, and that included people who they asked if they liked spoilers, and they said no. So it is very interesting. It is very unusual, but it does show a good plot twist can validate the players and their theories, even if, as we talked about before, that you can kind of move things around so that they could be correct. Another thing about good plot twists, though, is that it's something that's what is shocking and impactful in a way that you don't want to cause people to literally get like inured to it, but that makes that kind of throws their assumptions a little bit in disarray if you use it sparingly.
And there's also, because we're doing tabletop role-playing games, you know, two levels of things. Maybe you know, some of the players saw a certain thing coming because they're familiar with a particular narrative trope, but they were playing a character who wasn't familiar with that, and then they're like, oh man, my character's so surprised by all this, they never saw it coming. But I'd say that, you know, yeah, a good plot twist is going to change something about the story in a way that changes, like, you know, what the stakes or the tension, the priorities of the PCs, the priorities of NPCs, like, you know, that where if you were listening to some kind of a track in the background, the musical track of what was going on, you're going to change to a different genre of song, or you're going to change, you know, you're going to change the key, you're going to change the beat, you're going to get faster, you're going to get slower, you're going to go major to minor, you're going to change things around, change the instruments.
Yep. Also, with player consent and knowledge that players want to have like emotional investment in the plot and the storyline, where they're like, yes, please make me surprised, make me feel excitement, make me feel like certain things. In that case, you know that you've succeeded when you get like a major response, like they just can't stop laughing for 5 minutes because it's a really funny plot twist, or where they just like actually shout like no or something like that out loud, or like start crying spontaneously on the plot twist. If you know in advance. Otherwise, making someone laugh for 5 minutes might be like inappropriate in a session where you did not have that like planned out ahead of time, and they're like, what did you do? And you made me laugh for 5 minutes with this weird wacky plot twist, and I feel really embarrassed. So talk to people in advance about how much emotional investment you're looking for. But if you're in a group that does that, and in a game or campaign that's about that, then seeing the emotional response can tell you that it was a good plot twist.
Another sign of a good plot twist is this is the kind of thing that, players are going to be telling stories about to each other, reminiscing like a year later, or even longer later. They're going to be like, oh yeah, remember the time that this happened?
Yep. Therefore, because of that, reminiscence is an important part, and understanding things, not just being like, huh, is an important part.
Mm-hmm.
It might be useful in your mind to come up with like a very short summary of what the plot twist is. Like, for instance, remember that time that that Jonas was actually the villain?
Mm-hmm.
That's something that if you could say, remember that time that, and then quickly describe it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have to say, like, remember that time that the Merchant Consortium cornered the market on wool, which raised the price of silver, causing there to be a crash in the Alanathian Empire's weapon manufacturing because iron versus silver trading was thrown off, which therefore caused the third prince of the Kingdom of Sortrag to take control and exile his brother, who then became put on a beard and went into the tavern and hired the adventurers that then led to an evil warlord hiring an army of slimes, one of whom was the player character's sister. But that's maybe like a little too much for people to like understand and then talk about later.
But if it's like, remember that time we fought a slime and we found us talking slime, it was actually your sister.
Yes, that could be enough.
Yeah,
that's enough of a plot twist. You don't need all of that other thing.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Ash Mentally says if they're a fan of twists that intentionally obfuscate details or the past in order to let players pick the way forward, sort of like a Dark Matter comic or show. Yeah, so like there's I think that ties in sort of to the idea of like the players deciding and shaping things where you're put in an uncertain situation and the decisions that the players make help to determine what's true in a way that's not always clear to them.
Dustin points out that remember that time the Consortium slime was your sister could easily be an isekai title.
I think that's a little short for an isekai title.
It is a little
Remember that
short.
time the Consortium slimes was your sister, man, then you got hit by a truck and reincarnated in another world, but your sister, who was previously the slime, was actually
a dragon
who was 1,000 years old, and...
I think you've actually gotten to the point where you're longer than them.
Yeah, that's true. I've combined a few. I was just thinking about like I've been fighting slimes for 300 years or whatever it was called.
There you have it. So, yeah, basically that's the idea about plot twists is you want to be twisty and you want it to have a good impact, but you don't want to be so twisty that you basically outthink yourself or outclever your group by too much, and you don't want to be so repetitive that you wind up causing the group to just kind of like phase out of everything.
And you want to have foundation to them, so it's not just like, hey, the sort of like the giant space cockroach meme where it's like, oh yeah, you're going along and it seemed like this was the villain, but actually this space aliens are the final villain, and they come and attack. It's like, well, there was no setup for that, so it feels disconnected and arbitrary.
I'm on a beach planet, and then I went to a fantasy planet, and where there's all these galaxy destroying monsters, but then we were all in a simulation that was a video game, and I got out of the video game and found out that those gods in the other planet were really the
Please be
really
careful
of
if it was all a dream, it was all a simulation and other things that...
all the gods were the developers
that fundamentally, like, devalue the experience.
Till the end of time.
Like, sometimes you can have... just be careful with those kinds of things that are like, oh yeah, it was all a dream, it didn't actually happen, now you're back here and you have to restart with whatever. Things that mess with that sense of progress.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think that's sort of best practices for plot twists in terms
this comment here, like, Deus Ex Machina reminds me of sort of like another thing about, like, Deus Ex Machina type of twist where it's like, oh yeah, somebody comes in and just saves you. It's just like, that doesn't really feel that satisfying.
Twist that take away agency is part of the same thing as the twist where you can't stop the Regent is the twist where the PCs can't be stopped because of the fact that
Yeah.
they're being bolstered up by secret helpers. It's kind of equal but opposite part of the equation.
Although, like in said game that so we remained unnamed, I thought they did that pretty well because I kept being like, darn, why does this NPC keep showing up to save me? Like, it really doesn't make any sense that they keep showing up to save me. And then when the plot twist was revealed, it was like, oh yeah, I totally understand why that character was always there, and it all makes sense now.
There's a question from chat. Let's see what the question from chat is. And Dustin's correct that it's even worse if the secret helper is the GM's PC. That is never
some serious GM
never what you
PC-itis.
want. It's like, don't worry, you foolish losers. My PC will save you from your own incompetence.
No.
That is the worst choice. That is.
Have either of us ever brought in one of our prior PCs? I know we brought in each other's prior PCs.
We've brought in each other's characters before.
I don't think
but I don't really have a lot of prior
you don't have
PCs.
Yeah. In that way.
You've brought in your prior PCs
as characters. Yeah, well, like as GM PCs for a Shattered Star game is part of like the conceit of that. But I mean in the ones who are just like, oh yes, I'm gonna save the day.
All right, so here's the question from chat: what's a good way to make the players the plot twist? Like, their actions have large ramifications were caused by something they maybe didn't know or intend to do in a way that feels fair.
Oh, that's a really interesting question.
So, let me give an example of a time that I did that. It was very risky. This is Linda's first campaign. So I had one player, and he just kind of didn't want to come up with a backstory. So he just said, my character is a paladin, and I had amnesia, so I don't know. I just was raised in the temple of the God of Knowledge. So I was like, okay. So you want me to come up with some other things? He's like, yeah, come up with some stuff in the background. I was like, all right. So I thought about it for a little bit, and I gave him this really cool-looking sword that was made of, like, a rare metal that could easily deal damage to both, like, fiends and celestials that was for free. And it had, like, this pattern on it that would, could collect and channel energy. And he was like, that's cool. So they were playing along, and basically what happened was that the paladin wound up, like, defeating these enemies that were kind of placed in his path because of the fact that that sword being wielded by a paladin needed to, like, cut down certain sacrifices for an evil ritual. Because the paladin before Amnesia was an evil psychic character who gave himself amnesia so that he could set up the situation of having a paladin do this exact thing he needed the paladin to do, where he just steered the paladin into that, and had his, like, fiance, like, pulling the strings while he himself had amnesia, but she didn't know that she was the last sacrifice that needed to be made because she was half angel and half demon. And so she, like, set it up, and they had this giant, like, crystal island that was created, and so, like, she started blasting the other characters and took them all out, but she would just, like, exclude the paladin, and he just didn't even get hit because she used selective meta magic to not hit him, and was like, okay, this is done, we did it. She's like, come together, we're gonna do this. And then the paladin was like, isn't she supposed to be a master manipulator who, like, tricked an entire culture of
Why is she trying to trick a paladin
of undersea Sahuagin into doing her bidding, like, with her charisma checks? This is, like, so unconvincing. She gave me no reason to work with her. She's just, like, assuming I'm going to. And they kept fighting her. And I was like, I described her as, like, crying with, like, tears in her eyes. Like, why are you doing this? And so then he, like, executed her on the red crystal, and like, as her blood seeped into the crystal, it summoned Dagon, and also she had done a thing at the beginning of the fight which didn't even participate in battle but released his old memories, that part of himself, which was, like, then was hiding in the back. And so at that point his old self, like, took control, but I gave him one more action where he had full use of the powers of his old self to do something, and he used it for the wish equivalent from psychic magic back then. It was 3.5, where he wished to like send his allies away somewhere safe because they were all still there and might have gotten eaten, and like split himself off into like a body that was in a coma, like his part of himself was the PC. Mm-hmm. And so he managed to succeed at a will save enough to do two things, and then at that point the villain like went and made the deal with Dagon to get information on how to stop the demons, because the villain wanted to stop the demons by destroying and remaking the world and reincarnating everyone in a world that did not get corrupted by demons, because the first world was corrupted by demons. And Dagon, not like very popular among demons, as an even more ancient Oberith, so like he might have been willing to bargain. So this was extremely risky. Okay, you were actually
secretly the BBEG.
It was very risky. Okay, the player could have been very upset with this. He was so happy he took levels in Psychic Warrior with his Paladin and multi-class to represent that his original self was an evil psionic character, and he really liked the plot twist. Also, keep in mind, he named his character Adam, and the name of the BBG was Lilith. Just saying. He named his character Adam. I didn't name his character Adam.
If you name your character anything in one of Mark's campaigns, you should be A, suspicious that maybe he guided you toward that name, and B, if he didn't guide you toward that name, suspicious that he's going to come up with some plot that riffs on it in some way.
You mean like when you named your character a name that sounds almost exactly like Emrys, and they're actually Merlin?
Yes. And then with the one who had the middle name Arthur, who was actually Arthur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you named them. I didn't name them.
Named them. Did you like suggest her last name or something, or?
No, you named her.
Did you come up with that idea because I suggested it, or I don't know?
I was already kind of thinking of that, something related to that, but when you suggested that, I realized that it would be easy enough. Also, you had a few possible first names, but the one that you picked was the one that you always wanted the most, but I was just proving towards the one you liked and not some of the other ones because it sounded like Emrys.
There you go.
It was easy. No, it was not easy. But anyway, that was risky. Maybe you shouldn't do that, but absolutely the player's actions led to that twist. And then later in that campaign, the player character Bard, who had wound up with one of their feats getting locked by... They actually managed to outwit and betray the Prince of Lies, Baalzebul, like the Lord of the Lies. But in so doing, they got out of it like an infernal contract of selling their soul to him and got all the benefits. But they did had this one feat of like discipleship to him that then didn't give any powers and that they couldn't get rid of. So they had to go to an in-world garden to like remove the feat and to just retrain whatever they wanted to, which is what the same BBG wanted them to do the entire time. And that the BBG, like, in fact, was a helpful NPC who came and helped them to get there.
So helpful. It was such powerful friends that we suddenly had.
He came and helped them to get there. And just somehow mysteriously all of these things kept attacking the PCs that turned out to be, like, good aligned guardians that just went on a rampage.
But we didn't know. We're like, oh my gosh, these giant monsters are attacking us. And then we had
they were the good aligned kaiju who were the pillars of the world.
That villain just played us like a fiddle.
Yeah. So if the PCs hadn't like done all that stuff to get to the garden, they wouldn't have been able to get there because the villain was actually being kept out. So the trials that the PCs used to get to the garden. The PCs realized, because the plot was revealed almost immediately after that, wait a minute, it is true. It was almost like those two NPCs weren't facing the same trials as us.
Yeah, something's funky going on.
Their evil versions that appeared in the mirror thing were like not as threatening as I thought they should have been based on how well they were fighting before, they didn't really do a lot to us, and as soon as we defeated ours, like they somehow
Yeah.
defeated theirs like right away after that.
So
now
we're
that I
getting
think
really
of it,
suspicious
or
of
they
those.
weren't suspicious of them at the time.
Yeah, but
We were just
yeah.
happy that
Yeah, but in
then
hindsight, yeah.
in hindsight, you're like, wait a minute, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, they probably just made an illusion like they were doing the trials. That
Yeah.
They were not considered worthy, and they weren't allowed to take them in the first place. They were just kind of following along. So when the PCs found the path to the garden, that they could like sneak in at the same time.
Yes.
So there was a lot of player-focused plot twists and player actions leading to things. It's risky though, because players can sometimes be upset if they feel like they got tricked into doing the bad thing.
Yeah, exactly. If it's I think part of it is like, you know, where what do you focus on? You know, do you focus on the, oh my gosh, everyone's so upset with you because you did this thing, or do you focus on, you know, how the plot progresses? It also depends on, like, you know, how your players feel about those kinds of twists, and what kind of game they're looking for. Like, are they looking for something that's lighter and fluffier? Then you probably don't want to do good job hero type things. But if you're looking for a game that's in like a grittier setting where that kind of stuff can just happen, and you have sometimes when what you're doing works out great, and sometimes when you inadvertently help to support the bad guy, and then there's, as long as there's some way to feel like, you know, you got a victory, you won, at least got a partial victory, or like there's a path to go forward and fix things.
Yep, absolutely. And like,
or you learned something new and you became
sometimes
stronger
there's
in the
just
process.
not even a plot twist, and the players will just do things that are causing all of these issues. And I was like, okay, like when that aforementioned Bard PC wound up like giving away the souls of all of the elves.
Yep.
In the entire world to Dagon to try to get the information the BBG had gotten from Dagon.
Yes.
That was just a thing. And then another PC stole the party's entire treasury.
Stole $1 million gold to hire the world's
best thief to steal back the elven souls.
Yes.
But which were represented by an artifact that controlled where the elven souls transmigrated.
But I think that it does say something about our very unusual group, and the fact that you can have a group that was like, one of the PCs was secretly the BBEG the entire time. One of the PCs...
He was the most good aligned, except for the guy who stole $1 million, who was
theoretically
exalted.
One of the PCs stole the entire party treasury and gave it away. One of the PCs One of the PCs, like, was involved in a plot that was potentially going to get the other PC's family sacrificed.
Yeah.
To like the abyss.
Also,
one of the PCs tried to kill another of the
supposedly most good aligned PC is the one who stole $1 million gold. But he also did another thing, which was like very surprising. That was a twist for me as the GM, because my NPCs always want people to follow their agendas. Okay, and there's this really sketchy like dude who turned himself into an aberration, who was known as the Keeper. His actual name was Noah, and his goal was to like create like storage of like different types of animals, so when the world transferred over that it would be able to be repopulated with animals. But that was what he was supposed to do as part of the BBG's plans. But he also had some of his own agenda, and he wanted to stop this conspiracy formed out of clones of himself that were trying to like preserve themselves and then take over the world. So he was super untrustworthy, and the PCs taught to him, and he was like, taught to the PC was really good aligned. Like, by the way, your entire organization that you've worked for your entire life is like sus, and probably is going to try to take over another world. So you should just assassinate the leader of your group, who is secretive and never comes out, but they love you because you've been doing good deeds and helping them.
Yeah.
So ask them for like a reward, and when they come over to help you, just kill them. And he was like, I never thought of that. And I was like, of course he's not going to do that. So then he was like, yeah, I got to ask my leader if he'll give me a psychic surgery to teach me some new spells. Because he's the only one who can, the leader of the organization. I was like, okay, well, you definitely earned that. You are their #1 employee. So, yes. So they sent the person over, and he's planned an ambush, and he killed the head of his own organization. On the say-so of this really sketchy NPC who even the villainous characters like Lilith were afraid of, or was like kind of afraid of this guy. and it was sketched out by him. And the sketchy NPC was telling the truth.
Yes.
But, like, I didn't think that he would be believed because there wasn't really a lot of reason for it. So
And
that
Sean
was
was
a plot twist that I got twisted that it happened.
Sean was talking also about, like, soft PvP, like, stealing treasure. I think, you know, it's very important to know what kind of campaign you're in, because that particular campaign, which is not really something that we've done, we've done in a while with our group. I think we've got some different folks in it now, too, but that particular campaign, like, out of character, we knew it was a very dysfunctional group that included lawful good, chaotic good, lawful evil, and chaotic evil all in the same group. A lot of different, like, but like, you know, that was kind of part of what we had built into with that group, that there were things that that we knew that our characters didn't know, and secrecy was and some things that, like, we had as saved as reveals for each other later, and like, oh my god, you did what? Where did that fist come from? Oh, you know, it's just a fist of Gorion. No need to be suspicious.
Oh, yes, it's
what
totally
I did
a
while
fist
I was
of
in hell.
Gorion. I mean, definitely stealing $1 million gold from the party with that character did was definitely not among, like, the worst things that characters did in
Our
that one.
campaigns nowadays are so much more good aligned than the
I
ones we
know.
had with the
Well,
players we had in
That's because
college.
I'm playing and
Yeah.
not GMing. I don't like playing with evil and, like, sketchy things as much. So
Mhm.
my characters, I think, tend to be more upright. But yeah, I mean, I would still say that, like, my favorite though was the bard, the very utilitarian bard, and the character was utilitarian, the player was utilitarian, said the character was not evil, which, you know, alignment is a construct in game and it's going away. But the bard created their own plot twist to try to stop the villainous plot after they went to the garden, which I mentioned before that in this episode that they went to the garden. The bard started trying to craft magic items and like get as much money and resources as possible. So what he found was, as I mentioned earlier, the villain's goal was to stop the demons from corrupting the world by making a new world. Is that there was like a casino of friendly demons that appeared in the horrible demon area where mostly people died that was suspicious when the bard was trying to find plot hooks for things to investigate to get money by defeating them. He's like, why are they friendly? They really haven't killed anyone? Is something going on? So he went there, and there was this Glabrezu there that was just like, listen, you, it's like, I know who you are. You're that bard. You guys are our favorite. We put a lot of effort into corrupting this world, and we don't want that to get overthrown, so we'll help you however we can. And the bard was like, you will? For free? And he's like, yes. Bard's like, okay, I want your demon crafters to craft me as many magic items as possible, because there's only so many I can craft on my own. And the Glabrezu was like, oh, of course, we'll do that, and we'll send them over from the Abyss. But, like, if they're crafted on the Abyss, they're going to be made out of the matter of the Abyss, so they'll probably, like, have all these chaotic evil stuff in it. And the Bard's like, you're right, I forgot about that. Can we just bring things into the Abyss to craft with? It's like, by the time you're done on the Abyss, it's just going to get corrupted. And the Bard is like, what if we summoned them onto the material?
And the Glabrezu's like, that's a great idea. Why don't you summon a large number of
Glabrezu's like, well, you could do that. And the Bard's like, yeah, so if we summon them, then I'm going to make a contract where what they have to do is they have to spend 8 hours a day crafting magic items for me. And the Glabrezu's like, are you going to limit them on what else they do? Is like, no, as long as they don't do anything to interfere with us saving the world from the villain or go after any of the PCs who are trying to stop the villain or interfere with them. And the Glabrezu's like, well, okay, I think they're going to be fine with that if they can do any of their other evil deeds. I'll get as many as I can. And so they brought in these evil demons. But the thing is that Linda's character had betrayed one of the demons, demon lords in the past. So one of the demons that they brought in, like, now Linda's character decides to just let the BBEG win.
Yes.
So this is very important. One of the demons they brought in, like, started going on a vendetta against Linda's character in the spare time. And so after that happened, the PCs cornered and killed that demon crafter. And then the Bard returned to the Glabrezu, furious. And he's like, I'm so angry. And Glabrezu's like, what are you angry about? How can you be mad? look, first of all, we're not devils. We don't keep to the letter of a contract, but I think we did. We absolutely did. Like, she was crafting for 8 hours a day, and she didn't go after any of the people who were trying to save the world. You said that person was not trying to save the world, right? And also, I just want you to know, my Demon Lord hates the Demon Lord of that one crafter anyway. I agree she's, like, out of control. But, like, listen, okay, it's not my fault. And the barb was like, what? No, all of that was fine. That was fine, the things that the demon did to the family of Linda's character. No, but she got caught. Now she's not making magic items for me. She should have gotten some help or done it more discreetly so she didn't get caught.
And
the Glabrezu was like surprised by like just how cold the bard was, like, and how like how generally like it was surprised and impressed by the bard's level of chaotic evilness.
Yes.
That was another twist I wasn't expecting when that happened. The bard was like, "No, I totally understand. That it was well within her rights based on what we agreed to. Other than that, she got caught and she's not making me items. And she said she would make me items. I spent money getting her summoned here that was not she did not get the full return on the investment." Okay, so let's see. There were a few more.
Rise Tide campaign aside.
Yes. I mean, that had a lot of plot twists.
Yes.
There's also another question about what do you do if there's like a hidden information with a reveal style like heist retroactive plot twist? That's a great segue, Tony, because our next possible episodes are on a survey right now, and one of them is GM Tools hidden information for if there's info that like theoretically the characters know, but their players actually don't yet, such as flashbacks. Or vice versa, and how to deal with that at your table. So that is exactly one of the possible topics of and last I saw it was winning 1-0 to 0 to 0 to 0 to 0 to 0.
Let's see if more. Oh, there's it's
got
tied
two.
with something else.
Oh,
between
it's tied
Bell
with
Knight
Bell
and
Knight and
Workshop.
Workshop.
All right,
so
shall we say goodbye to YouTube?
Let's say goodbye to YouTube at this point, since that was just the perfect segue. So bye YouTube. See you next time.
Bye.